Turning to a spot of business news now, and while stocks in the United States edged lower on Monday with technology shares weighing in mostly on the S&P 500, leaving it overall down 0.25%. The Dow Jones fell just 0.1%, while the Nasdaq dropped 0.4%. Meanwhile, on the main Asian indexes, a bit of bargain hunting going on in Japan after the country reported a 1.3 contraction of its economy in the first quarter of this year. Ongoing worries of rising COVID-19 cases not looking, though, to have any effect, as you can see. The Nikkei in Tokyo up 2.25 percentage points. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong also doing well, up 1.25%. And the Kospi in Seoul also up 1%. Green across the board there on the main Asian indexes. Well, meanwhile, 30 heads of state from Africa and Europe are meeting in Paris this Tuesday for a financial summit that aims to address the vital needs of many African countries that have been particularly hard hit by the economic impact of COVID-19. The International Monetary Fund estimates that the continent faces a shortfall of $290 billion due to the pandemic and says that developed economies must step in to help. Claire Rush tells us more.
In terms of cases and deaths, Africa has fared better than other global regions during the coronavirus pandemic. But in terms of the economy, it's been one of the hardest hit. According to the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, Sub-Saharan Africa is set to record the slowest economic growth of any world region this year. Its economy shrunk by nearly 2% last year, its worst contraction on record. Employment fell by 8.5%, and more than 32 million people were thrown into extreme poverty. In the face of the pandemic-induced downturn, the head of the IMF told France 24 that wealthy countries must step up to make financing available to African nations.
We do hear a great deal of concern among the advanced economies of this dangerous divergence, advanced economies pulling out, low-income countries falling further behind. Why this is not only an ethical concern, it is also an economic concern, because this divergence would mean more insecurity, more instability, and lost opportunities for the world economy to grow.
The IMF has allocated $23 billion in direct financing to countries in sub-Saharan Africa, but the sum is a far cry from what's needed for future development. The IMF estimates the region's economies face a financing shortfall of $290 billion due to the pandemic. Per capita output is not expected to return to 2019 levels until 2022.
Well, ahead of that wider summit, French President Emmanuel Macron hosted a conference of African leaders in which he announced the cancellation of Sudan's $5 billion debt to France. A bid, the Elysée said, in helping the country transition to democracy after the removal of Omar al-Bashir. The process of cancelling the debt to be formalised by the IMF next month. Well, Rwandan President Paul Kagame is also in Paris to take part in that international summit. A recent report by a French historian commissioned by the French president has concluded that France had an overwhelming responsibility in the 1994 genocide in Rwanda. Taking time out to speak to France 24, Kagame gave his reaction to that report.
I think this is a big step forward that is welcome by Rwanda and I guess by many in France, that we can have these facts, the truth established by independent people, by independent commissions. France and Rwanda have a chance now and a good basis on which to create a good relationship, as the case should have been. Then the rest we can leave it behind us, maybe not forget it, but forgive it, and be able to move forward.
Well, you can watch that full interview at 10:40 Paris time here on France 24, or indeed catch it up with it on our website, france24.com.